Howdy, seventh grade. Today we're going to look at a topic that I don't think is too complicated. I think it's something that we've looked at before, but it's on how to choose the appropriate rational number to use, which when you hear that, it sounds kind of complicated, but basically we're going to pick between using one of three options. And those are going to be either using decimals, using fractions, or using percent. And we're going to look at which of these are better when and why we should use them. So I got three examples I want to show y'all. So the first one is going to be how much, example one, here we go. How much is 40% of 1/2 of 1260? Well, that's kind of crazy. I got a percent, a fraction, and a decimal, so which one do I go to? Because it's very, very difficult to work between them, so I have to kind of pick one because we know how to work with one. And I'm looking at this, and if I wanted to, I could put this all into fractions. That would be kind of gross, though. There'd be a lot of very large fractions. So what I'm going to try to do is write these all as decimals. Now, I know that 40% is 40 out of 100, which is 0.4. So I'm going to start with that. 40% of means times, 1/2, which I know is 0.5, times 1260. So decimals ended up working really well here because I can turn them all into decimals without much of a problem. So I multiply all these together and I end up with 0.2 times 1260, and that will give me $2. Sorry, this was supposed to be dollar sign. There we go. Not looking at the problems I write down beforehand. This will give me $2.52. $2.52. Ta-da! All right. So now we're going to look at a second example, example 2. And this one's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to look a lot the same. So if I'm looking for how much is, there it is, 66 2/3%. I love this as a fraction inside a percent, just to make our lives a little more complicated, of 5/6 of 1260. All right, so looking at these are a little bit harder to get into a decimal. So if I do this right here, that'd be 66.6666 over 100, which would give me 0.666666, which is not fun to play with. So I'm not going to put it in the decimals. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make everything a fraction. So if I have 66 2/3 over 100, this actually simplifies to just 2/3. So 66.666 out of 100 is 2/3. And I can keep my fraction of 5/6. And then I have 1260, or 12.60, and I can write that as 126 over 10. So now I have my fractions I can play with. And looking at this, I have 2/3 times 5/6. If I want to simplify this right away, I can say I got a 2 on top, and the 6 is the same as 2 times 3. Now I have a 2 on top and bottom. Those can cancel. I have 1 times 5 on top, which is 5, over 3 times 3, which is 9. I'm going to multiply that by 126 over 10. Multiplying this, I can also do a quick factoring of the 10 into a 5 and a 2. The 5's will cancel out, and I would end up with 126 over, let's see, that'd be 18. And just for fun, let's see what all I can do. Simplifying this, 126 divided by 2 is 63 over 9, and 63 over 9 equals 7. So my answer there is 7. If we use decimals, because it would be repeating decimal, we wouldn't have actually been able to get exactly 7, no matter how hard we tried. So it's a really good thing we use fractions for that. and percents are just kind of hard to work with, so we normally avoid those. So my third example, I hope you guessed it. The first one we use fractions. The first one we use decimal. The second we use fractions. This one's going to be when do we use percent? Like I said earlier, it's kind of hard to use, so percents are mostly used to show things. So if you want to make an answer pretty, you use percents. Percents make answers pretty. So if I have something where 180 out of 280 women voted yes, and also at the same time 150 out of 275 men voted yes, there's a few different ways I can put this. So if I surveyed this many people, I can simplify these a little bit. That'll make my life a lot easier. So if I simplify this women number, I could say that 9 out of 14 women, and let's see, the men one here would be 6 out of 11 men voted yes, which is great, but I can't really compare these two numbers because they have different denominators, and it's really hard to compare those. So that doesn't tell me much. So that makes me sad. Doesn't tell me much. Which is not fun at all. So if I don't want it like that, I could do it as a decimal, and I would get 0.643 of the women and 0.545 of men, which is something I could do, and we can compare this a little bit and say, well, this number is bigger than that one, so that works out. But normally we don't like using decimals, especially when we're talking about people, because I don't really know what 0.643 women looks like. That's not really how women exist. Normally you have a whole woman. They're a discrete quantity rather than a continuous one. So decimals is normally one we kind of try to avoid here. So the best way to make this work out would be to write this as 64.3% of women and see, it would be 54.5% of men. And this is really easy to read, so this one right here makes me happy. And if we're displaying things, a lot of the time we're going to want to use percent because it works out very, very well. So that's all I got for today. It's kind of almost common sense stuff. Just finding one that works easiest. Sometimes fractions will be easier. Sometimes decimals will be easier. Percents will never be easier to work with, but sometimes they look pretty at the end. So just finding which one you want to use, and after you know which one you want to use, making sure you use it and follow through. So I hope y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all tomorrow.